Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Squall Growth Podcast. I am so excited to have a very special guest, Haley Pavone of Pashion Footwear. Haley is one of the most incredible marketers I have witnessed in the industry today, especially on organic and TikTok. Haley, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Chris. It's always good to see you.
So, Haley, can you give our audience a little bit of the introduction to yourself, your company, and then maybe tell them a little bit of your founding story, which I love to
Oh,
hear.
such a good story. Such a good story. How I ended up in the shoe industry is beyond me, but it's been a heck of a ride. But yes, to give the quick overview, hi everyone, my name is Haley, founder and CEO at Passion Footwear, where we have invented fully convertible high heel technology. So very innovative new category in the footwear space, protected by utility patents in 30 countries. It's the easiest to show it. So for anyone with video, you can obviously take a peek, but I'll talk you through as well. Essentially, what our product is a high-heeled shoe where you can actually remove the heel itself, leaving behind a flat. So instantly solves all the typical high heel pain and inconvenience that women have been subjected to for several centuries now. And then in addition to that, as if that isn't fun enough, we also let you customize the shoes with swappable heels. So really bringing kind of accessorizing and styling into footwear in a way that hasn't been done before. So it's a very exciting product category. We've been building this business for 7 years. I got into this industry very much by accident, just to solve a problem I was experiencing. I started the company and invented the tech when I was a 20-year-old junior in college at California Polytechnic State University here in SLO. And really, the inception point was I'd worn 6-inch stilettos out to a sorority spring formal, as you do when you're 20 in a sorority going out for the night. And as many women will relate to, you can't dance in 6-inch stilettos. So I did what I'd always done to solve that problem of ditching my heels and going barefoot. Unfortunately, the inspiration struck in a very literal sense when another young woman accidentally stomped on my bare foot, and the stiletto of her shoe went through my foot. It actually impaled me clean out the other side. It was a very dramatic experience, but also a very literal and visceral light bulb moment of as I was sitting there unimpaling myself, it just started to strike me how odd it is that everyone knows high heels are uncomfortable, they're inconvenient. Women still love to wear them. And so the way that we would solve that problem is going barefoot, bringing backup shoes, or just suffering. All three of those options seemed pretty subpar. And so I couldn't shake this idea that there had to be an opportunity to do something new and better and create a more versatile product for the women of today. And so I felt very inspired to dive in head first, had no background in footwear at all, but was just really passionate about the concept and the opportunity and have now built the company to what it is today.
Awesome. I love the story, and I mean, anyone who is an entrepreneur listening, that was just a masterclass in how to pitch a company and a product.
I had to do it a
So
few thousand times at this.
yeah, we could dissect into every little technique that you just used there, but that was
Thank you.
beautiful. I think I would love to fast forward ahead to a little bit of now that you have product and you're starting to sell. How did you get sales going in the very early days?
Sure. Well, and we had a very interesting launch strategy in the sense that everything we had planned almost immediately went out the window. So we'd been doing the company for 7 years at this point. But like I think mentioned, the first 2.5 years we were off market in stealth mode, doing the product development, engineering, R&D, sourcing the supply chain. It took some time to reinvent the heel, so to speak. So we launched the brand for sales in June of 2019. And our plan at that time was, it was the heyday of digital marketing. We're like, let's go out and, build a really great digital marketing funnel like we've seen Warby Parker and Allbirds and Rothy's and all the really big D2C darlings of the time had done. And then we also knew with a product this demonstrative, we really wanted to go into physical retail quickly. So in those first 6 months of 2019, our real goals were, let's get some press coverage for the online brand to build credibility. let's funnel digital advertising to get eyes on the product and create awareness that this concept exists. That was always our biggest challenge, really, was no one knows convertible heels exist, so they don't even know to look for it. Like no one was searching heel that turns to flat, right? It was a completely new concept. And then lastly was, I was doing basically a road show around the West Coast, pitching wholesale accounts to try to get in store. Um, we do that for about 6 months and then the pandemic hits and the entire footwear industry and everything we thought we knew completely changes of
So up to the
yeah.
pandemic and this initial try, right? Kind of giving a history, maybe you can reveal is like, what kind of volume as around were you doing from those efforts? How
Sure.
was that
Well,
like?
and again, this was only like our first 6 months on market, but we got to a point where we did about 516,000 in net sales. And that was all e-commerce. We were able to successfully get, I think, 2 retail trunk shows that did, a couple $1,000s. But the wholesale pitching process is quite lengthy. So we had not banked on getting a wholesale account in the first 6 months. We were hoping for in the first year. But then the pandemic made that timeline more like maybe someday, maybe someday when stores are open. But that was kind of the volume that we were at the time. Pandemic,
Some significant volume to show product market fit,
decent
and
volume for
I'm
6 months. We were happy. It was a good initial
yeah.
showing for sure. Felt like we were just starting to get our footing and really get some momentum when nobody needs high heels in a pandemic. The entire industry fell apart. No one's going outside. So our whole pitch had always been women wear heels to work, they wear them out to dinner, they wear them to weddings, they wear them for travel. Like it's such a diversified use case that there's nothing that could ever happen to collapse the entire market. Because actually, when we'd been raising money, a big thing had been the rise in remote work. So VCs were curious if, working from home would destroy our market. And it's like, oh no, there's all these other reasons to wear heels, right?
VCs were curious if your market and business would be destroyed.
They were indeed. And so no one saw the pandemic coming, which was the one thing I hadn't bet on either of, wow, we really can just eliminate every reason to wear shoes all in one fell swoop. So those first couple of months of the pandemic were definitely a scary time for us. We had to kick that retail assumption out the door. We had to really rethink a lot of our initiatives. Things like press that relied very heavily on being able to meet with reporters were no longer an option. Hosting events and pop-up shops all no longer an option. And so really what we saw was, okay, digital advertising has to pave the way. Like we have to get out there and make a splash, and we have to try to just get in front of as many people as possible because
Were you just running Facebook
yeah,
ads
we were
or
doing
Google?
Facebook, Instagram, and Google, running those. And so that really became our acquisition pipeline, and we were successful with it. It wasn't as dramatic as I think it could have been in another market, because again, I think we lost probably 60% of the market potential because women just didn't need to buy shoes.
So you just saw like the pandemic, because it's interesting because some of my guests, they've seen pandemic boosts, others. So you saw a huge pandemic like compression on your
Yes and
business.
no. We still grew, but I would attribute that to the novelty of the concept. As people have always been very interested in what we do, very fascinated by it, they're still willing to try it. And we did have one advantage over some other clothing companies of your footwear size doesn't really change. And footwear also tends to be a little less trend driven in some cases than, fast fashion apparel. So women could justify, I'm going to invest in these shoes and then I can wear them whenever I get out of this, right? It was okay as a longer term purchase. It's hard to say if the business was deflated just because we'd only had 6 months of historical data. So like we did grow. I think we went from 516 up to about 1.2 million in 2022. But the question we have to ask is how much market was lost because there was a huge chunk of the market that wasn't buying product. So we grew, but not at the rate that we've been hoping for. And certainly not at the profitability profile that we had wanted because we had to invest so heavily in digital ads. But it was the only way to reach the consumer at that time.
So you're ending 2020, going to 2021. I mean, and then were you running organic at this stage as well, or was it mainly just
We were
page,
doing
digital ad?
organic Instagram. I don't think we weren't really leaning into TikTok yet, if TikTok was even on the scene. I'm trying to remember. It was still like in the beginning days of TikTok, so it wasn't
Yeah.
something we'd ventured into. But we were doing Instagram organic, but we had a very small community. Again, we weren't growing our customer base at a quick rate. So really, our key question became, how do we grow the customer base, hopefully in a slightly more profitable or economical fashion than digital ads for every single consumer that we're bringing in? Because the other thing that we lost as well is, and we'll talk about this more later, but we'd always assumed and now have proven that one of our biggest acquisition channels is just grassroots referrals. Because when women
Yeah.
use the shoes, let's say at a wedding, and they've got 8 women in a 10-yard radius in painful stilettos, and they see that gal rip the heel off her shoe, they ask about it. It's a fascinating thing to see. But in the pandemic, yes, we still sold a decent volume of shoes, but even those customers that got the shoes weren't wearing them anywhere. So all of that was completely cut off as well. So we were like, okay, we need to compensate for the fact that we're losing all grassroots eyes potential, which we'd banked on. We're losing all wholesale visibility, which we'd like all of the non-paid channels we'd banked on were just gone. And so that's what led
Yeah.
to us applying for and airing on Shark Tank in 2021 to kind of subsidize what we were trying to do on paid. We're like, hey, we need this big organic content moment to just elevate the brand awareness and the category awareness. And part of that is luck. They get 40,000 applicants. I'm very happy I was one of the 120 or so selected to film for the show. But that really helped us, get on the map in a time that otherwise it was very hard to make a lot of noise about a footwear product.
Yeah, absolutely. So you get Shark Tank, and anyone interested, I'll link to the episode down below, so you can go and see the pitch. It's incredibly difficult to do, way harder to do than they
Oh,
make it
it's
look. It
yeah,
sounds
psychological
so
warfare.
heavily edited.
Yeah.
You got that boost there, and then but then I understand is that were you seeing a slowdown in digital at the end of 21 going into 23,
Where
or
we saw
where
the
was this?
huge digital pivot was around iOS 14, as I think a lot of digital marketers did. I'm trying to remember. I think that was early 22. It
21.
was 21. Yes. So digital, I think we were able to hide from some of that for a little bit because Shark Tank kind of supplemented our results of that was such, great organic content. Putting a Shark Tank pitch into an ad performs better. So we were able to circumvent a little bit of the iOS 14 impact initially. But to your point, as we started getting, closer to the tail end of 21 and then going into 2022, we started to really see, hey, this strategy that we have built out of digital advertising and a digital acquisition pipeline simply isn't working. At our prime, we'd been able to see a 6 to 7x return on ad spend because we did always have very strong creative. Again, our biggest asset is the fact that the product is so visual and inherently interesting. People want something.
But I also want to point out something from a creative standpoint. In the early days, who was the main model?
Me usually.
You usually. I love that, right? I always go
Yeah.
back and suggest founders is that their number one influencer, number one is
Is
themselves.
themselves. I will say though, it wasn't so much a strategic choice as I didn't or couldn't spend money on models. So I was the only free feet in the building. So it was usually me. But yes, we went basically from seeing a 6 to 7x ROAS pretty consistently on ads with our creative to that dropping off to a point where they just simply were not profitable anymore. And it was wild how quickly that happened with iOS 14. But we went from being a business that was making money, although to be fair, and as you can appreciate, you still have such high CACs that it's very hard to break even in that business model. But then we were really losing money, so much so to the point that at the beginning of we cut back pretty dramatically in 2022. There was a big fear that turning them off entirely would have a really negative impact because it had almost become a crutch, so to speak, of, hey, if we spend X, we should loosely get Y. But what we found was that correlation of X to Y started pretty dramatically falling off. Like it was not directly correlating the way that it had used to. But anyway, in the heyday, we could easily spend 80 to 100K a month on digital ads. In 2022, that went down to like 10K to 30K. And it got to a point where by the end of 2022, it was like, we physically can't keep running our business this way. I think it was kind of the big digital marketing reckoning, and a lot of D2C ecom businesses went through the same thing. Of that had been the playbook, and also very much so the playbook pushed by VCs onto startups because they did love the data predictability piece of it, but it had been pushed for, I think, about the last 5 to 10 years. And so for all that to fall apart, it took time to make that transition. But by the end of 2022, I was looking at the books and I was just like, as scary as it is to cut the guaranteed eyeballs, I'm not even sure that they're the real LTV driving profitable eyeballs that we want for this brand. And so we ended up cutting all of our digital ad spend going into 2023.
You went cold
turkey. I think it was January of 23 officially. We were just like, we can't. Partially, again, because we really couldn't afford to keep doing it. We were like, we're going to bankrupt ourselves if we keep doing this. So we pivoted, and I had a really good talk with my marketing team of, hey, we've banked on this strategy to bring us business for a long time. But what's really going to give us longevity as a company is the ability to build a brand and a community. And something that I think I realized is, I don't know if you can do that through paid ads, or at least exclusively through paid ads. The younger millennial and Gen Z consumer have grown up so overwhelmed by digital advertising that they're very aware of what is and is not genuine marketing. And so I think the minute they see hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored, think of your own consumption on TikTok. The minute you see those things, you scroll past, you don't watch it. And so I basically became increasingly paranoid that, we're spending all these money on ads, and I think it's just almost leaving a bad taste in the customer's mouth versus really making a genuine connection with them. And that's what's most pivotal to building a brand that's going to last. And for us in the fashion space, that's incredibly important for our brand. And you think of, not that we're at this level, but like the Manolos, the Louboutins of the world, like very big fashion houses don't run digital advertising. And there's a reason for that. So anyway, yeah, we pivoted to a fully organic strategy, and we knew it would be challenging.
So at the time, so you cut the ads, and then what assets did you have there to kind of switch into this organic? You had an email, SMS list. You mentioned you had Instagram. Yes. Do you have TikTok at that time as well?
Or? We had email and SMS, and decent followings on our subscriber lists on both. I think over, it's been a while, so I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say at least over 100,000 email subscribers and, I don't know, 10,000 text subscribers, probably something to that effect. We had TikTok. I want to say we had probably about 70,000 followers on Instagram, and then maybe like 100 on TikTok. I'm just like ballpark.
Just 100 followers.
Ballpark where we were, like 100,000. And then my personal TikTok had nothing on it. I had like 3 followers. But I just had a theory, kind of as we've talked about. I was like, hey, I really want to be genuine. I really want to be authentic. I kept coming back to 2 main things. Of one, as I mentioned before, our biggest strength had always been our product is eye-catching. People like to look at it. They like to learn more about it. It has that shock and awe, all of which I knew were pivotal components of going viral on TikTok as a platform. And then I also knew that people really like storytelling, they like relatability, and they tend to identify more with people than they do with a brand. Hence the rise of the influencer economy, right? If you see, L'Oreal try to sell you a lipstick, you don't care. But if an influencer you love tries to push L'Oreal, then they're interested. So originally we'd started looking into influencer marketing. All of them were more expensive than we could afford. And so I went back to my roots of who's the free feet? It's me. And so I thought, almost on a whim, but with a lot of encouragement from my team, I'm going to see if on my personal account, I can start making some passion content and see if I can really bring my story and my genuine passion and enthusiasm for this company we're building to the consumer in that medium, and saw very shocking overnight success with that effort that changed everything about how we market.
So, there's a few things that I'm always talking about and debating with clients here. So Instagram versus TikTok. I personally haven't seen major brands grow with just Instagram for quite some
Yeah.
time. Did you see, were you, I mean, your brand is meant for Instagram, if anything, right? Did you see traction there? Were you seeing organic sales? Was there a correlation? Because I continue to think that Meta is like making sure that you cannot show content to your followers so that you have to pay for it.
They certainly want you to pay for it. I think I'm a little biased because for us, they're very intermingled. So to your point, growing on just Instagram was a challenge. We were doing it, but it was very slow moving. Um,
Mm.
a great example is actually what's going on with us recently. Of we just hit 200,000 followers in December, and then now we hit 570,000 today. So it took us 7 years to get to 200, and then 2 months to grow by another 270K. Reason being, our new strategy now is Instagram alone can be a challenge. We use TikTok to fuel Instagram. So we make content on TikTok. We use TikTok as kind of a testing ground for what content is, viral potential, really resonating with the customer. We then repurpose that same content onto Instagram, and that's where it seems to really perform. I think Instagram, especially right now, is really trying to compete with TikTok, and so they're encouraging video content. To your point, we've seen massive deflation on static posts, which is what Instagram started out as. They're certainly not encouraging that, but we have found that if we, leverage a really viral video moment from TikTok, Instagram does seem to step up to meet that challenge and match it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's constantly all about the reels, video content. You just see way more engagement.
Yeah.
But then, so we're going to go rewind. Is now you're at 3 followers on your
My TikTok.
own personal account.
I
Yeah,
had
and then
I don't know,
like
300, but it was negligible. Negligible.
300, and then the Passion brand you said had
I
100,000 on
want to say
TikTok, or
something to that effect. Yeah, we had a decent following on the Passion account.
okay. So how were you building? Was that just from customers coming in on TikTok and you're reposting on your own
For the
brand?
Passion TikTok. No, we had
Yeah,
just
for
been
the Passion.
doing, little video shorts here and there on our photo shoots. Mostly we were shooting content Instagram first and website first, but would start putting together videos for TikTok, which was more of an afterthought. And so to see the following grow to 100,000 in about a year was already very impressive. But again, like I said, most of that content was almost B-roll of the shoes. And so an insight I had just from my own consumption scrolling through TikTok was I don't watch a lot of product videos. I watch people or processes or stories or things to that effect. And so I kept looking at Passion's account and being like, hey, we're doing really well, but this is just a lot of product content. And I know when I see product content, I think it's an ad and I kind of just move on. What if we could bring that more personal element of, myself and basically try to do the influencer playbook as someone who's not an influencer, but just see how that would go. It very much was a test that frankly I expected to go nowhere. I was like, no one's gonna watch me make TikToks about shoes. Like that's weird. But in February last year, so it's been got almost like a year to the day since I started doing this, I decided to start testing my own type of content. And so it started as, one video like 3 days a week. I would try different things of here's me just explaining the shoe, here's a day in the life, here's this and this. And I had one video go kind of the like overnight story of I posted it, went to sleep, woke up with 250,000 views. I was like, whoa, like there's more views than I've ever seen.
Which one was this? Was this a reply?
No, it was a day in the life video of behind the scenes at a photo shoot. Very like narrative, format. But once I had that, I obviously started getting addicted. I got the dopamine hit of I just got 250,000 views. I was like, I gotta keep doing this. This is great. So then I started getting momentum and felt really excited. So started posting more like three videos a day for a couple weeks, and that was when
3 videos
per day. So I started upping it. I was on a high. I was like, oh, I got 200, I had like 10,000 followers all of a sudden. I'm like, yeah, like I can do this. So I started posting more, had my mojo up. And then the real game changer was a couple weeks after that, I posted kind of my first how they work video, walking people through the shoes technology and explaining it. Over the course of a week, it racked up, I want to say about 22 million views. Now it's at like 29 million all time, 3 million likes, like really,
So
really.
was that just a straight product demo, or were you replying to someone? What do you think
That one
helped
was a
trigger that
reply. It
moment?
was a comment reply, yes. Of someone had commented on another video and said, yeah, what was it? It was, I think it was just, can you swap the heels? It was something simple. And so I just gave a product
Yeah.
demo explaining it, and it completely took off. And so then that started this unlock for me of, okay, demonstrative, personable content. Comment replies is a big strategy that we can talk about. But I mean, I gained basically 300,000 followers overnight and kind of unlocked very quickly. This is the kind of content that works. Started leaning into making that content 2 to 3 times a day. And now I have about 720,000 followers a year later. And it's enabled us to cut all paid marketing. I basically fuel the business with TikTok, which is very profitable. It's great. We love that.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And so now today, right? You have a huge following on TikTok. You have a large following on Instagram. Um, and so, are you seeing where are you seeing the sales come from? Mainly TikTok, or are you starting to see Instagram help you out as well?
Purely from a social perspective, not some of the other things that we're working on. TikTok drives the most traffic, hands down. The way I would kind of describe it is I see TikTok as acquisition, Instagram as community building and retention. Of once the customers already bought and they love us, they've already seen the TikToks, they're intrigued. Then they'll go follow Instagram for more of that brand understanding, behind the scenes, new product drops, our campaigns, like that's more that side of things. But I would say my mind strategically looks at TikTok for acquisition and Instagram for community.
Very cool. I mean, I think that's a great way to think about it and to actually partition off, because if you put everything as acquisition, it's really just the content just doesn't resonate,
Yeah.
right?
Plus, Instagram is
And
so well set up for community engagement between stories, like the
yeah,
polling capabilities that you can do there. We survey people about what styles we should make next. You can comment back, DM. Obviously, you can do those things on TikTok, but it's harder to do in mass in the same way you can on Instagram. So I think the Instagram is how we really establish that brand voice with people that already know who we are. TikTok's where they meet us.
so I'm sure we have a lot of entrepreneurs that are like blown away by the success as I am here. So thinking about this on early days, were you to help fuel your own? Did you have the Instagram account send people there? Were you emailing people to follow you? How did you build that initial following, or were you just posting content and
The
experimenting on
Instagram
TikTok?
following specifically.
The TikTok, growing your
My
personal
TikTok.
TikTok, yeah, and growing that following.
Oh,
Were you
no. I just made
sharing it,
videos.
or you just
There was like no other
making
strategy
videos?
into it. I just kept making videos and doing what I could to increase the virality of those videos. There's a lot of strategies I've since learned. I guess my strategy has never been so much about growing the following. That's been secondary to my goal of just creating good content. I think good content
Mm,
inherently grows the following. And so I've unlocked a lot about what I think goes into good content specifically for TikTok. And that's really what's led to the strategy that has inherently grown the following. Um, you've already touched on one big one is I call it basically like comment funneling, or you can basically build your own viral rabbit holes of there's no way on TikTok to pin a comment to the top of the comment section, which is annoying. I wish they would add that feature. But I figured something out just by trying stuff early on. This is not something that they really talk about, but I figured out that if you reply to a comment with a video, it more or less pins that comment and the responding video to the top of the comment section. So what I saw was an opportunity to create this journey for the customer of if I have a super viral video, for instance, the one that hit, 22 million views or whatever at the time, I would go through that comment section and find 3 or 4 comments that I thought could be addressed with really well done videos. I'd film those videos as a reply, and then they'd automatically pin to the top of the comment section of an incredibly viral video. So think about how you look at
oh,
TikToks, right? You see something really cool, you open the comment section. Oh, look, I've served up a video answering the next logical question that you have. You go to that video. all of the views trickle down. So that for that one first 22 million view video, I think the next five in a row all got like, 4 million, 3 million, 800,000. Like you're able to really string out that virality and create a customer journey down this rabbit hole of content that you're creating. And hopefully along that experience, they get so many questions answered that they're jazzed enough to follow you.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. You're daisy chaining it around, and so then each video is building on each other. Because I totally do that with some of these daisy chained, like clipped
Yeah,
podcasts
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff, right? Who would be doing that? Are you watching us on in TikTok right now? Um, but I think that's a really good strategy. What are some of the other strategies that you
Some of the
learned
big
so far?
ones, I will say, so the first one's a little more general and then I can do specifics, but the first really general one that I give is, to put it in teacher speak, I call it the 3 E's of content. Of any
Hmm.
good piece of content should either be entertaining, educational, or have what I call an empathy angle of really presenting to them as a friend. So it's something this one's the hardest to explain, but the way I try to simplify it is, usually when people are scrolling TikTok, they're not with their friends. They're not in a social setting. They're on their couch eating chips. You are, as an influencer, serving the purpose of being their friend in that moment. So they want to feel like they know you. It's an authentic conversation that they're having. They're on FaceTime with you. You want it to feel real. Again, a big part of why we all skip ads. And I've even noticed a big part of empathy that can be created in a very technical sense is, a lot of people will skip videos that are filmed in HD. It's too high quality. It's too forced. It's too ad adjacent. I have always gotten
Yeah.
more views on a video just filmed on my phone with like no makeup, hair in a top, but like because it feels like you're on a FaceTime with me. Like that's the piece. So good content will have one to two of those three. Great content has all three. If you can find a way to teach them something new in an entertaining format that feels really authentic, that's viral content. And there's a lot of different ways you can do those things. Entertainment could just be being funny, like just having a funny demeanor. I throw the heel kits around sometimes and people think that's hilarious. Or it can be, entertainment in the sense of just bringing them on a journey with you, a day in the life, a get ready with me, that narrative piece of entertainment. There's a lot of different subsets of these categories. But anytime you make content as a creator, I highly recommend thinking, is this entertaining? Is this educational? Am I being real? If you're not hitting any of those three things, what's the point of the content? That's,
Well, I think that being real, that in that empathy
yeah,
part, like I think there's a lot of people that try to educate, that try to be a lot of people that attempt entertainment, right? But I think the empathy part that you're mentioning, because a lot of times folks, they're just so concerned about the production
yeah,
value, they're focused on how they look instead of really focusing on the other person. And I think that's such a huge
yeah.
unlock, and something that people don't talk about in terms of making great
They
content
don't.
is
Well, and
empathy,
I think it's
right?
funny because it's almost, I'd say one of the biggest mistakes I see creators make is they honestly overthink it. They try too hard.
Yeah.
Like a big part of empathy is and making it feel authentic is to just be authentic and be easy and be yourself. Like I know creators where in person they're completely different than they are on the camera. Again, I think it's a very weird concept, but this generation of people has grown up with digital advertising shoved down our throat. We have a very gut reaction about what is real and what is not. They can sense that. And so, weird note to creators, almost don't try too hard. Like, if you genuinely love something, let that shine through and people will feel it. If you try to force it, they will know and they will move on.
100%. I think that's really, really
Yeah.
compelling. So so what's your other kind of
Other
tip here
ones, I
beyond
can these are more technical ones, very quick, but to give a couple on like the execution side. I've definitely learned the
that?
first 3 seconds of a video are the most pivotal. One of the biggest mistakes I
Yep.
see creators make is they kill 10 seconds with, "Hi, my name is Haley, and today I'm going to tell you," nobody cares. You will see on my videos almost every single time within the first 3 seconds a heel comes off a shoe, because I know that's the, what did I just say? That's the, you got to grab them. You got to grab them in 3 seconds or they're gone. So don't waste that open to a video. You'll see a lot of creators even cut like a exciting part from later in a video to the front and then like restart the video with that segment in.
Yeah.
The first 3 seconds are 98% of success on a video, truly. So like do not waste that time with something dumb. Get very high impact. I've also found that having a call to action, or what I call a comment plant, is very helpful. Obviously, the algorithm loves engagement and loves interaction. So if you can encourage your following to comment on your video, that's going to help. The two ways to do that are a direct call to action. In my case, it's, which shoe that I showed today is your favorite? Let me know what heel kit to style next. Blah, blah, blah. Literally ask them to comment. A comment plant can be a little more creative, of intentionally putting something in the video that people are going to talk about. For instance, I have an adorable cat. I don't kick him out of the frame if he waltzes in. I let him waltz because then I know I'm going to get 20 comments that are just like, what a cute cat. The algorithm doesn't care what the comment is, it just wants the comment. You'll see people
Yeah.
intentionally misspell things because people are going to comment, oh, that's the wrong there, right? Like a book series that is trending, put that in the back corner. People will comment, I love those books. Like, it can be things that you're just kind of hiding very casually that are conversation starters that people will talk about. Like, it can be as direct as just asking them to comment, or as indirect as just letting your cat be adorable on the side of the frame. Like, you
Yeah.
know
So oftentimes, like when I'm like getting bootstrapping a social and doing this, I'm doing this mostly on Instagram. I'd love to be doing this more on
Mhm.
TikTok. But it's something where I'm sending like an email SMS with the email to get someone there with the post, right? Does that work, or did you do any of that, or is it now just, or do you think that it doesn't really help? It's better just to get natural, organic
I think
posts and
that's,
encourage
at
the
least for
comments.
my following, I think this is one of those things where there's a lot of ways to be successful and a lot of ways to grow your following. With mine, I've always just focused on the content piece, and the following has come. I
Mhm.
don't think we've ever directed to my TikTok from email. We've done a couple things where, like, if we repost one of my videos on Instagram, we'll link back to the real TikTok to push people that way. Um, I'd say the most calculated thing we've done is occasionally TikTok giveaways. So,
Mhm.
enter to win a free pair of shoes, tag 3 friends below, and you all have to follow me. That's one of the more like
Yeah.
direct strategies. Um, but really, I think the biggest growth hack for us has just been really honing in on those 3 E's of content. Again, just make really good content. And I know that's so subjective, so it's hard, but that's been the biggest one, truly.
What do you think about, would this, if you replay this in your mind, that you everything that you learned? So one thing that's curious for me is, like, do you think this would have worked if you, instead of having your own personal, you were actually doing it from the Passion TikTok and same content but on the Passion TikTok? Would
I
that
have a
work?
theory. No. Um, Partially we know that because we have reposted some of my content onto the Passion TikTok. And don't get me wrong, it does well, but almost never as well as it's done on my account. I have no proof of
Mm.
this, but my theory is, I think when you have a business TikTok account, they want you to pay to promote videos. So the algorithm
Mm.
is a little less helpful. I have no concrete
Mm.
proof that's true, but when I look at who's done well on TikTok, your Alex Earls, oh god, I'm blanking on their names. Of course, I would know their face, but now I'm gonna blank on other names. But when I think of accounts that have done huge, it's individual people, not brands. Like, there are brands
Yeah.
out there, with like the exception of is it Duolingo? It's like blowing up, but that's because they have the bird, and so it's like from the point of view of the bird that's running around. But I think it's twofold. Of I think there's some stuff going on algorithmically that just prefers personal accounts. But then I also think from a consumer standpoint, again, they're very conscientious of, is that profile picture a person or is it a logo? And I think being a person is always going to resonate stronger.
And so if, let's say, like I have some corporate accounts,
Mhm.
right? And so now I'm going to create my, going
Your
to
own
like my,
account, yeah.
yeah, and go and just from me, right? should I just like right now, my hearing your story, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna start create. I'm gonna take my three E's, and then I'm gonna start experimenting with
Yeah.
content. Try to post 3 times a day, and kind of see what happens. Or would you kind of take a different route than you did originally?
No, that's mostly what I encourage people to do. I will say one thing I've learned is I don't think the frequency of posting is as important as the consistency. It's like I've seen some content creators that post Monday, Wednesday, Friday, one video, and they do great. I just have backed myself into a hole where I've taught the algorithm that I will post 3 times a day, and so that is now what they want from me. But I think it's the consistency over the frequency. Come up with that schedule and stick to that. But that's really the way to go about it. Is I think the hardest thing I have advising people on content is telling them what content specifically is going to resonate for their product. I know that demo
Yes.
videos and try on hauls and unboxings work great for me. That might be a completely different content subset depending on the industry and the niche and who the consumer is. So I'm not ever going to advise people on specifically what content is going to hit for them. So instead, what I will say is exactly what you said: test. Come up with like 10 different ideas of what a good content piece could look like, film them all, put them all out there, track the analytics, which one does the best, make more of that for a week. Does it keep doing well? Like just keep tweaking and iterating that content design. And over time, in my case, a year, I've now honed in on 4 to 5 content styles that I know are going to do well pretty much every time.
I got this piece of advice from a talk from the CEO of TikTok, and he said before you spend any money on
Mhm.
TikTok, to go
Yeah.
organic and find your community. And for me, when I think about some of the things I've been advising clients to do, and this I might be giving bad advice, is go and search for community, search for people who are influencers, follow them, and then see their content, and then replicate
Absolutely.
that just to start. Because it seems like that at least that content is a hint of what is working. Now, there's the empathy piece, though. If it's not legit to them, it won't
Right.
work.
It
Um,
has to be
but
applicable to
I think
you,
that's
but
really
yeah,
interesting.
seeing what works for others can always help because it just gives you an idea of the type of content people like to watch, and then it's on you to figure out how to apply that content structure to your offering.
And I think this is the other thing that everyone's thinking and not saying. What's the shortcut? This sounds hard. What's the shortcut, Haley?
Well, I don't think there is an obvious one other than the things that I've already shared, right? I think a lot of people waste time making really bad forced content. Well, no, you'll hear people say this is actually funny because I've heard multiple creators say this, and I'm curious if you have to. They'll say, "Oh, I put all this time and energy and thought into these videos, and they don't go anywhere. And then I post this one random thing that I filmed in 5 minutes, and it goes super viral and gets a billion views." Like, have you heard that joke? It's like a joke amongst creators that it's like the one piece of content I spent no time on did so well. It's because it's the most authentic content. Again, this is weird, but like, don't overthink it. I see so many founders overthinking their content, and it's boring. It's boring and it's dry and it comes off as forced. So just get on there and be yourself. And that is challenging. It's actually very hard, but the only way to get there is to
Yeah,
practice it. Get in front of the camera, get used to having to stare at yourself in that little selfie screen. But I guess the only shortcut I would say is I consistently see founders spend their first 2 to 3 months on TikTok really just frankly trying too hard to make really calculated, great content. And in doing so, it's actually not as strong as if they just got on there and were excited about what they're doing. You know, it's a weird hack,
absolutely.
but
I,
just
I
like try less, try less hard.
I mean, it's funny that you're saying that works on organic, and I think it also works on paid as well. We had a client who had one of those fancy $100,000
Yeah.
ads, one of the big fancy
Mm-hmm.
ones, right? And then our team had him just film himself telling his founding
I
story,
bet it outperformed.
and cut it up with some product demos
Yeah.
overlaid, right? It had it beat the other ad by I think 3x.
I have no
And
doubt. No doubt at all.
it, yeah, it's so funny. But I think so. The other thing that I think a lot I see a lot of times I experience myself is it's scary to put yourself out there,
Yeah.
right? It's scary to go in, look like a fool on the internet. What what advice do you have? How do you do that to put yourself out there consistently every day?
You know, it's a funny question. There's a couple things on this. The first I'd say is building the habit of, and also you see the results driven, right? Like it was harder to be consistent with it early on because I wasn't sure if it was going to work. Now we're at a point where my channel is driving hundreds of thousands of people to the site. Like I can see the results, and the immediacy of those results is insane. Like I could post a video and see a sales spike 30 minutes later directly tied to that traffic. Like when you start seeing that kind of instant gratification, it becomes a lot easier to get over those hurdles. If you're like, hey, this is so it's such a direct impact that gets almost addicting, to be frank. um like I said, the second thing is just practicing it. You know, you put yourself out there, you get more comfortable with it, get more comfortable with editing. I will say I have a bit of a leg up of I a lot of people don't know this about me, but I actually went to a performing arts high school, so I have a background in performance and production. So for it helps.
There it
So for
is.
me, being in front of a camera isn't as scary as it is for other people, but I have coached some other founders in this regard, and it's just practice. I just happen to go into it with more practice than other people, but it's like anything when it's outside your comfort zone. You've just got to push yourself, and eventually it gets into your realm of comfort zone. Um, and then the last one I'll say is, I think a lot of people are scared of social media because of the negativity. That was certainly something I was scared of to begin with, especially when I talk about make it about yourself, not your brand. Like you're out there as Chris Herbert on TikTok, not as a brand, right? So it can feel more personal when inevitably there are trolls, because they're always yeah, but I feel like I've always had a very good attitude about that side of things, and I don't know where I get this perspective, but it's twofold. The first one is, if you're a business owner and you've got a good product and you're just out here trying to sell it, anyone that has something negative to say about that isn't someone you should really be that concerned with, and they were never going to be a customer anyway. Like anytime I see someone write something really nasty on one of my videos, I'm just like, who has time to troll a shoe company? Like it's shoes, okay? Like go troll something way more damaging to the world. If you have that kind of time, you're just not a person I would be friends with, really. And I've also always been good at what I call kind of confirmation bias and statistics of, when you see a review set, people are statistically more likely, significantly, to leave a 5-star or a 1-star review, because people tend to only put in the effort to comment something and share something if they have an amazing reaction or a horrific reaction. So you lose everyone who's a 3, 4, 2-star in the midst. And those are all people that are perfectly satisfied just carrying on with their day, right? So I always look at the ratios. Sure, I might post a video and there's 10 comments that are just like, you're horrible, your idea is stupid, I hate everything about you. Again, it's shoes, like relax. But then I look and see that same video will have 40,000 likes. So I'm like, you can't please everyone. If my ratio is 40,000 to 10 on the upswing, I'm not going to lose sleep. I'm just going to move on,
Yeah, it's so funny, and it's also like the trolling on the internet, and it's I think people forget is, and I always keep this in mind, is even if it's a negative comment, it helps
Oh,
the
it's, yeah,
algorithm, and it helps your
that's my
post. And
favorite.
then I had one client, we were running an ad, and we were running this in Europe, so a different culture set than here in California, but it was a woman in yoga pants and a bikini top. Her stomach
Okay.
showed, and there was so many comments on it, right? And so like I put in the ad is this person's a renowned journalist, and very respected as well. And so it caused this debate of people saying, oh, this company she's just going in and running around showing skin, and then people are like, no, it's a journalist, and this is in like body image, and it would dramatically help. And that ad had a 8x improved
Yeah,
click-through rate versus anything else we ran.
absolutely.
And yeah, there was skin. It was shocking, but then for Europeans, but then it was. I think the debate really
Of
helped.
course. Engagement is
So
engagement. Yeah. Anytime I
it,
see a comment that's like,
I,
I would never buy these shoes, I'm like, well, thank you for helping the algorithm serve it to 20 people that will.
please let's go on fight. Come on. I think that embracing negativity is something that is scary. And putting yourself out there. And yeah, haters gonna
We
hate.
can hate,
I
but
think
just make sure the decibel is trued up. I think a lot of people, it's very easy to turn the volume up. If you see one negative comment in the sea of 500 and it's all you remember, that's you cranking the volume up to like 1,000 on something where the volume should be like point. You
I
know what I
love
mean?
that
So
analogy.
just make decibel check yourself. Again, one bad comment on a video with 20 million views and 3 million likes, you're
Turn
doing all
I
right.
love that analogy. That's such a great way to think about it. Um, so I think we need to kind of get to the
Yeah.
final thoughts here. I mean, tell us a little bit about what you're excited about in terms of passion, in terms of marketing strategies, in terms of D2C in general. What do you tell us? Like, what are you going to do next? I mean, you're at the
Oh my
forefront here.
goodness, we have so many exciting things going on this year that I'm really really stoked about. Of course, growth maintains our primary concern, particularly growth of our shoe base and our inventory. The issue we're having most frequently right now is we're more viral than we can keep up with. We keep outkicking our coverage and selling out of shoes, which, although a good problem to have, nothing pains me more than the comments of "you haven't had my size in stock for 6 months." Because A, that's a bummer for them, and B, for me, I'm like, God, that's revenue I've been delaying for 6 months. Like, oh, so we're working on scaling things up. But as far as what's next for Passion, we're finally starting to think about retail again. That was something we put on the shelf ever since 2020, very literally. I love a good pun. But now we're at a point where we have such a strong online following, and the biggest conversion barrier we do have with those customers that still love the content but aren't ready to make the leap is footwear is still very much traditionally an in-store experience purchase. The majority of the market does like to try on shoes first, especially a shoe as, for lack of a better word, convoluted as ours. Like no other shoe comes with instructions, so people want that tactile experience with it. So we're finally a big enough brand and have robust enough operations, and the market is appropriate for us to start those discussions. So there'll be some exciting announcements on that coming later this year. But from a marketing perspective, really continue to focus on our three pillars of organic. Great content is number one. Number two is great community, and that includes things like our affiliates, our bridal ambassador program, and then our social communities as well, and then and also referrals, and then lastly, great LTV upsell. We have a very unique opportunity with our customization accessories to keep the customer coming back more frequently than in typical footwear, because we're really pioneering this concept of accessorizing your shoes and having instant repeatable customization. And so from a product standpoint, we're leaning into that a lot this year. We're launching our first new heel shape that we've ever done. We're launching 4 new accessory categories that people can delve into. Really leaning into that concept, both for fun for the customer and then also from a business standpoint to drive LTV and repeat purchase rate for us, with the eventual goal being that we could build that up into a subscription model at a certain point. So we're heading down
Excellent.
that road, all very exciting things.
Yeah, I mean, we can have another discussion on the importance of subscription and D2C, but that's a topic for another day. I can dive into that and talk on that all day long. A subscription is one of my favorite things. Um, cool. And I mean, this has been a master class already. I think that from the very get go on the pitch, there's so much people can learn. Thank you, Haley, for talking to me today, and I can't wait to make a fool of myself on
It's
TikTok.
fun. Hey, it'll
For sure.
probably go more viral than if you didn't make a fool of yourself.
That would probably be, yeah, to watch this dorky entrepreneur on
People
TikTok.
love it. Hey, if you've seen my content, I'm a dork like 98% of the time. I'm making up words. I'm throwing stilettos all over the place. It works. It works, you know?
Oh my goodness. I'll link to your TikTok. Everyone, if you haven't seen Haley's TikTok, please do so. It's the most inspiring
Yeah.
TikTok. And so I always like to leave it with a last word. I am feeling riled up. I want to go on TikTok. I'm leaving, like, I'm going to go and get it done. So thank you so much. Haley, you get the last word.
I get the last word. Oh my
You get the last word.
Well, I feel like I've said it already. Just get out there and have fun. Stop trying so hard. Just, if you love what you do, let that shine through. And I think it really resonates with people. So just go be yourself and be a great founder. They go hand in hand. Yay.